Welcome to Jubagali at the Sydney Opera House, now known as Bennelong Point. We acknowledge and welcome you to the lands of the Gadigal. Enjoy the show.
Good afternoon. It's so wonderful to see everyone here on a sunny, beautiful day. The harbour has put it on for all of us. Oh, you can't hear me? No, okay. Hopefully that will be resolved. That's something that is out of my power currently, so I'll keep talking to the people in the front row until we resolve it. Oh, is that it? Nope. Maybe we'll just have a oh. I feel like that's a low bar for your applause, but I will take it. I was almost going to call for a moment's silence, but we just had it, as it would turn out. Now, good afternoon. Welcome to the Wayfinders, ordinary people changing the world. The harbour is so spectacular and glittering today. It's such a beautiful, sunny day, and so many of us have yet come in here to try to listen, to try to learn, to think about a world that can be better and how we can be better. I want to, first of all, before we go on, just thank those wonderful performers we just saw. David Kalowski and Samurai Kunio, that was a duet for two conch shells, which is a sacred shell in many cultures, of course. Antoinette Sampson and Kim Kunio. This is a new work called Angels in the House, for gongs and angels played by members from the Brahma Kumaris. We had Angels in Our Town and Lynn Lindsay from the Highland School of Performing Arts and their beautiful dance students. And also, finally, we had our iconic and much-loved jazz musician, James Morrison. So thanks to all of them for kicking it off. So I'm Julia Baird. I'm an author and a journalist and your host for this event today. And I know that I'm not the only one who's feeling like the world has really particularly gone mad lately. It's gone quite topsy-turvy. There is a lot going on. There's a lot of concern about the melting of our planet, about the growing gap between rich and poor, about the rise in loneliness, in antagonism, and the way we speak to each other, the way we speak about each other, about the wars that seem to never cease. And in the midst of it all, it can become really very overwhelming, and it's hard to know how to respond. Do we dive in? Do we tune out? Do we lie under a tree? Or do we alternate between all three of those things? But do we also remember that it is at times like these that wayfinders emerge, ordinary people doing extraordinary things, shining a light on a way forward and changing the world for the better. And I'm really pleased to say that many of those wayfinders are here today. Now, one thing I've personally learned through my own times of when I've had particularly difficult or dark times, something that has really sustained me has been awe, the pursuit of awe, whether it's in the natural world or in music or things that make you feel small, psychologically, in a great and comforting way, small. And in those times is when we feel more connected to other people and more conscious of the world that we have to preserve, like when astronauts go up to space. And they call it the overview effect, and they're up there and the world disappears behind their thumb. It's like a pea, and they realise how much we all need each other, how much we rely on each other. Mathematicians, engineers come back, poets, theologians, philosophers. And one study of awe that really struck me was how do people most find and experience awe? And a man called Daka Keltner did a study of 26 countries, 2,600 people, and found the number one way most people experience it. I would have said the natural world. I would have thought that was the obvious answer, but in fact, it is seeing it in each other. It is seeing acts of great kindness, great decency, great courage in overcoming obstacles and in pressing on. So this afternoon, our panellists are going to share their own personal stories of wayfinding. And we want to, by listening to them, explore some pathways to a future of resilience, to a future that contains some hope. Now, but before I introduce them to you, I want to tell you about the Brahma Kumaris, the organisers of this event. It's the largest spiritual organisation in the world that's open to both men and women, that is led by women, which is an incredibly significant thing. It is a worldwide community of diverse individuals from all backgrounds, all walks of life, all religions, cultures, castes and creeds. And they're dedicated to a life of spiritual study, upliftment and personal transformation. And in Australia, they celebrated their Golden Jubilee this year. The heart of the Brahma Kumaris is, when I change, the world changes. Let's find out a little more in this video.
Taking just a minute, turning inwards, I visualized myself as a lighthouse. Strong, firm, stable, spreading light in all directions, illuminating the way for others. I spread the light of love, peace, and joy. Empowering others on their journey.
Come find your light. I love that. And by the way, when I was dipping into the history of the Brahma Kumaris, it was not always an easy path to becoming a female-led movement such as this. In fact, there was very strong resistance and pushback at various times. Today, of course, they bring us the Wayfinders discussion we have today about ordinary people changing the world. And this is a global event. There are a couple of thousand of us here in this hall, but online there are thousands more huddled around the screens and watching in various guises: Asia, India, the United Kingdom, Iceland, South America, North America, Canada, the Middle East and Europe. So a very big welcome to all of those who are watching here from around the world and joining us in Sydney, Australia. We're going to have some lovely surprises along the way as well, with some very talented musicians doing some performances. Now, I want to start first of all, by welcoming our first speaker, international guest, Sister Jayanti. She's a spiritual teacher and the additional administrative head of the Brahma Kumaris. She's been the organisation's representative at the UN in Geneva since 1982. And she's a true wayfinder with a lifelong commitment to bringing universal spiritual values to the table where decisions are made. Tables where there are politicians, economists, business leaders, scientists, and nearly other stakeholders. Every other stakeholder of our times. I can think of a fair few tables where I would quite enjoy her presence at currently. And she's been doing this for many decades now. So let's welcome her here. How delightful to be ushered out by an angel. Wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you.
And I know you'd like to start by having a moment of silence together. Now, Sister Jayanti, before we start, we have a message from Her Excellency, Mrs. Murmu, the Honourable President of India. And this message is in mark of the Brahma Kumaris' 50 years in Australia. Now, she's quite an astonishing woman. She's been serving as a politician since 2022. And when she was elected president, which was resoundingly, she was the first person belonging to a tribal community to hold that position, the second woman and the youngest person ever at the age of 64. I'm really keen to hear from her now.
This is the message received from Her Excellency Srimati Draupadi Murmu, the Honourable President of India, from the President's Secretariat, Rashtrapati Bhavan, India. The President of India, Srimati Draupadi Murmu, is pleased to learn that Brahma Kumaris, Australia, is celebrating an event titled Wayfinders, Ordinary People Changing the World. At the Sydney Opera House on April 13, 2025, to mark the 50th anniversary of its service in Australia. The President extends her warm greetings and felicitations to all those associated with this event of Brahma Kumaris and sends her best wishes for the success of the event.
Now, Sister Jayanti, I was fascinated to read in her story that she, as a young girl, growing up in a tribal village, Murmu, demanded that she have an education. Tell us what makes her such a remarkable wayfinder.
Can you hear me? Yes, okay. Age 10, her parents and grandparents wanted her to stop education and help them work in the fields. And she said, but I want to study, I want to learn. And they said, well, we can't arrange that for you. By chance, a minister of the government was visiting the neighborhood, and she went up to him, and he was quite surprised to see this little girl approaching him. He was fascinated. Yeah. And he said, what can I do for you? And she said, I want to study. And he said, okay, I'll arrange it. And that was the start of a remarkable journey. But the other remarkable thing is that she started her life just simply wanting to serve. And she came into politics with that intention of service. And so the first thing she did was to get a bridge built across the river, where earlier the children had to go to school to study across the river, going by boat or swimming even. And so she understood the value of service in that way. When she was a minister, her son died in a tragic accident, and she was devastated. She came across meditation at that time and started to meditate. And that carried her through various other challenges until in 2022, she became the President of India.
It's an incredible story. I know she's really represented, like, I'm about to say this wrong, participative, there we go, democracy, and having everyone fully and properly represented. I want to bring in all of our other Wayfinders now, our panellists. And first up we have John Owen. You may know him, the Reverend John Owen. He's the pastor and the CEO of Wayside Chapel, which is a frontline service in King's Cross and Bondi in Sydney. And he's devoted much of his life as a community leader to tending to the vulnerable and to shining a light and fostering a not them but us kind of philosophy. So welcome, John.
Thank you. Thank you.
We also have Linda Burney, proud member of the mighty Wiradjuri Aboriginal Nation, member for Barton. Former Minister for Indigenous Australians, the first known woman to identify as Aboriginal to be elected to the Australian House of Representatives, the first Aboriginal person to serve in the New South Wales Parliament. It's an incredible legacy. And Linda, before we begin, I'm conscious too that we are on the lands of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and it's important to reflect on our ancient history, the ancient culture that has been here for tens and many thousands of years and has contained much wisdom.
Thanks, Julia, and on behalf of everyone, I want to acknowledge country. I know it's something that you're all familiar with. We are on the land of the Gadigal, and the Gadigal hold a very special place in the narrative of Australia as being the first First Nations nation that experienced British colonisation. That and for many other reasons, we recognise the Gadigal.
Thank you. Now, as I was mentioning earlier, when times are difficult, one of the things we're most likely to feel is lonely. We've got people around the world talking about an epidemic of loneliness. We're becoming more atomised, more separated from each other. The more connected we are kind of by wires and the internet, the more we seem to distrust each other and have difficulties talking to each other. But so many of the problems that we're facing are collective. And so often in these times, we see the best of people coming together. John, can I ask you, first of all, about this idea of you are not alone? Can you tell us how in your journey as a wayfinder you've experienced that you've been struck by that idea of you are not alone.
Thanks, Julia, and thank you for this opportunity to share a panel with such wonderful people. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'll give it a go. Hi, Mum, wherever you are. Look, I think we don't begin our lives knowing that there's any separation between us and our mothers. And you only need to watch a toddler follow you into the bathroom. We don't know where they begin and we finish. And then, unfortunately, somehow through this growing up process, and we're put into schools and we're separated on our aptitudes and our abilities and the ways we stand out above others, we soon find ourselves as constituted as separate beings. There's something about Western society that we exist in that renders us as isolated individuals. And so most of us, when we face crises, end up feeling so thoroughly disconnected, isolated and alone. One of the common threads that runs through everyone who comes through the doors of the Wayside Chapel in King's Cross and Bondi is that, whatever they are experiencing, they're utterly convinced that in the warp and woof of humanity, they're going through it. It's utterly unique. Yeah. And they don't know where to turn.
But that's been so much of the work that you've done, is to convince people that they're not alone and that we need each other. Right?
We don't beat them over the head to tell them they're alone. We say no one's a problem to be solved, they're a person to be met. So often the ways we've come up with in Western society to interact with people is predicated upon some of the isolated individualism that we have find ourselves in. Some people walk through and finally are open to seeking help, and they're met with someone with a clipboard and a pill and a program and a pamphlet, and they're given one of those on the way out, and I think, what was the point of even that at all? So if we just focus on looking people in the eyes, learning their names, we don't need to suck on our pens and say, I can see you're having a hard day when someone walks in, if they're sleeping rough, is just to make them feel seen.
What about you, Linda? When we talk about it's how important it is to know we're not alone, you come from a strong community with a strong set of values, and you must have at times in the political environment in which you operate feel lonely and at odds with that. Like, how do you reconcile those things?
There are times of loneliness, but can I say I am very honoured to be on a panel with the three of you. And a bit like John, I'm not quite sure how I got to be here, but I am very pleased, and thank you all for, I think Julia mentioned, coming out on a beautiful autumn day. In political life, and many of you would know I've just retired after 22 years, it is both a lonely place, but it is also a place of great collectivity. And I think the experience I wanted to share with you wasn't so much about my life in the political realm, but I have known death very much in my life. The people that raised me, two brothers, a husband and a son. And I just wanted to share with you one thing, and I hope this helps you because you are not alone. But I remember just after my husband died, and I was standing at my kitchen window, and I looked out the window to the garden, and I thought to myself, I have had so many people around me holding me up, but there has to be a learning out of this. And I think what happened to make sense of what is universal for all of us, and that's the experience of death, to learn that the thing that I became as a result of my husband's death and the gift he gave me was a deeper sense of compassion. And I think that if we all think about losing someone in that way, they give you so much to gain as well.
Sister Jayanti, have you had times of feeling alone, and how have you navigated that?
Thank you. Firstly, I just want to offer my respects to the traditional keepers of this sacred land where the Opera House stands and we're all sitting now, and to honor their elders and the present, the past, but also the emerging leaders of the future. I remember feeling very, very alone when I was trying to discover my identity. And so this was, I had just started university. I'd lived in London most of my life and was at university there, so I thought good things can happen now. But at a certain point, I became aware that there were many different avenues open for me, and I didn't know myself, and I didn't know which direction to go in. And I think whatever identity crisis I faced at that time is probably something that many of the young people and not so young people might be experiencing today also. Because there was a traditional British path, there was the permissive society that had just started. That was 1968 that I was going through this. And then there was a traditional Hindu path, and then there was the path that my mother was on, a spiritual path. Right. And I had no idea which way I wanted to go. And I felt very, very alone at that time. England was a lot more homogenous than it is today, so we didn't have so many people of colour there. My father was very wise and suggested I spend time getting to know my roots. I came to India, and I knew the Brahma Kumaris through my mother. And I went to see Dadi Janki, who at that time was in her 50s, but she lived to the ripe age of 104, and she came to Australia many times. And I didn't have to say too much to her, just she knew me, so it was just courtesy. Then she said, "Shall I speak, or do you want to say something?" I said, "Daddy, I've come to listen." Daddy means elder sister. And she spoke about conscience, and she said how there are so many layers that impact us. Media, society, education, friends, so many things. And everything becomes a little bit grey. It's difficult to know which direction to go in and what is right and what is wrong. And she'd touched me absolutely where I was. I was interested. I said, "Well, how do you get rid of these things?" And she said, "The conscience has become clouded, and the conscience has to be made clear." Well, how do you do it? And she said, "Learn to meditate." And it opened up a whole new horizon for me, and it was a new beginning. But today I realize that it wasn't just me, it was many, many who go through that similar situation of just not knowing.
I was about to ask, what would you say to every young person going through that? But I feel like you've just answered it to the same advice. What about you, John? I mean, it's not necessarily a linear path to work out that you're going to be what we're calling a wayfinder today, that you're going to have someone you're going to have a significant purpose in meeting with people and bringing people together and showing them how we can be better in community. So what was that like for you, working that purpose?
Look, being a wayfinder is really about having little way markers in life. There are significant moments that happen that it's important. You know, I think our elders and our ancestors would have put a little pile of rocks together as a marker, because our lives and our journeys are cyclical. And we need to revisit those places as touchstones and reminders of who we are and whose we are, because it's so easy to lose our way and to fall back into the traps that are around us of individualism and isolation. You know, personally, I should know better. All right, you know, I've been gifted with just some of the most beautiful gifts of family, friendship, and faith that has really helped guide life and to be able to serve others. But you know, I can fall back into that deep, dark hole where I feel alone, I feel isolated. And, you know, it really did happen for me a few years ago when, you know, I always had this, I had to work hard. I have to work hard because I've always felt on the outer. You know, my parents, a beautiful man named Zix met a beautiful woman named Selvarani, and they had 3 beautiful daughters, Shimona, Shobana and Shamala. And then I'm like the world's greatest afterthought, right? John, right?
That's not bad, mate. That's all right.
Just always had this kind of, where's my place in this? You know, where's my role? I can't get hand-me-down dresses anymore, thanks. But King's Cross has been fantastic too in that way. It's, you know, I found myself alone again, right? Should have known better. I was isolating in my little backyard shed, and actually I wasn't alone. I was with my 3 best mates. Their names are Ken, Jack, and Peter. Kentucky Fried Chicken, and Jack Daniels, and Peter Stuyvesant. And, you know, our firstborn was in hospital. Her life, she was on life support. You know, she was going through significant struggles with her mental health and had made some attempts on her own life. And I went into that whole zone of isolating. You know, of all the roles that I have out there, one of the most precious is who I am as a father. And yet that still wasn't enough to pull me out of that despair. And I was sitting there isolating myself. And yes, I could give you a lesson to say, you know, I think the taking in of spirits is, you know, an attempt to connect with the greater spirit. You know, I call smoking bogan breathwork. You know, we often need to return to ourselves. You know, it is an important, you know, breathwork is so important. You know,
Yes.
Nearly every person who comes to Wayside smokes.
Right.
And nearly all have adolescent or childhood trauma, and it's an attempt. It's a synthetic attempt to move back into ourselves and into the vibration of existence. And I can't really come up with anything clever for the KFC. But then I had a friend, a good brother of mine. He is a Wiradjuri man. He is from Cowra, and he's one of my best mates, and we're brothers, and his family and my family. And he just came and sat alongside me. He didn't say a word. He just sat day after day till eventually the chicken ran out. And then I kind of looked at him in my misery. And he just looked at me. He hadn't said anything. He's a man of very few words, Joe. And he said, are you done yet? Are you done feeling sorry for yourself? And he said, the question that's driving you right now is why me? And I was doing that, like, God, why me? I do all this stuff, you know, for everyone else. You know, we've given our lives to care for others. And why has this happened here? He said to me, that's the wrong question, mate. He said, the question is, who is the universe asking you to be now? And that was a real shift. Who am I to be? What kind of partner? What kind of parent? What kind of leader do I want to be? And that was such a significant shift. And it all started through him being present in my pain, not advising me, not telling me, I should cut quinoa out of my diet or add it in. You know, he was just, his sheer presence in my pain was the perfect gift.
And seeing exactly where you were at. Linda, do you relate to the moments that Sister Jayanti and John are talking about in terms of that question of when do I work out what my purpose is?
Yes, I very much relate to both Sister and John's stories of I'll never, ever forget. It was like it was yesterday, sitting on the front veranda of my home in a very, very, very small village in southwestern New South Wales. And I was on my own. I was 13 years old, and I had a decision to make about my Aboriginality. I could remember, this is back in the mid-60s, the easy path of not identifying and pretending as people used to back then, that you were first from somewhere else. And with my looks, I could have done that. Or there was another path. It was a Y junction. And this was the path that was rocky and hard and had potholes. But everyone, it was the path of truth. And that's the path I took. My Aboriginality and that decision that day was absolutely visceral. And I think the other thing that really has struck me in terms of Wayfinders, in terms of my life over the last 25 years, 30 years, 40 years, has been two values that I was raised with. I was raised by my great aunt and uncle. They were in their 60s when they took on a small black baby. They were non-Aboriginal people, very, very brave. And they raised me with very old-fashioned values. But the two that have served me well, no matter what I've done, particularly in political life, is kindness is free and good manners cost you nothing.
Very true. There's a big discussion to be had around digital manners too, isn't it? People
Yes.
think you can hop online and nothing applies anymore. They'd say things they would never to your face. Sister Jayanti, you're going to be leading us in a meditation shortly. Now, when we think about meditation, a lot of people who don't practice it would think, oh, that's a very lonely thing to do. And I'm assuming you would see it very much as the opposite of that. There are people here who might have dabbled in it, who might be serious meditators. There'll be people who are all the way along the kind of journey of trying to understand it. And looking at you, we'll see someone who has such depth of wisdom about it. What do you know now that you did not when that woman said to you so many years ago, you must meditate?
What I didn't know was that meditation actually is easy.
Right.
And I think that it'll be a pleasant surprise for most people to know that meditation doesn't mean stop your thoughts. What it does mean is channel your thoughts in the right direction. And if I learn to do this, then it can be a meditation that I practice wherever I am at any moment. And so I might be standing at the bus stop, I might be waiting in a queue to buy something, wherever I am, I can just turn inwards, come to the awareness of the inner being, the light that I am that inner light, and connect with my own inner peace and allow my thoughts to move away from the things of this world and eating and drinking and meeting and greeting and all of those things, but just simply reflect on who I am as the inner being. And through that, I discover that meditation allows me to experience my own highest self. And so the first question that I have, which direction do I go in, got answered very, very quickly. The direction is to go inside, not east, not west, not here or there, but go inwards and make contact with the inner being that each one truly is. And we can experiment with that and just see how it goes.
Can you lead us in a meditation now, please?
Thank you. Just sitting comfortably, and there's an image of this point of light in front of you. And if you wish to experiment, keep your eyes open and focus on that point of light. If you'd prefer to close your eyes, that's fine. I'll share my thoughts and invite you to follow these ideas. I go inside. I come to the awareness of the being of light that I am in the center of the forehead. And in this awareness, my thoughts slow down. and I select one thought, the thought of peace. I hold this awareness, and as I reflect on peace, I become aware of the peace that I carry within myself. I begin to appreciate how sweet this experience is. And it feels like coming home, home to myself, to that inner being of peace. This is who I truly am. Peace is my natural state. Peace is who I was. Peace is who I am right now. Peace belongs to me. It's within me, and I can connect with it at any moment. I am a being of peace. I hold this awareness so that it stays with me for the next while. Om Shanti, I am peace.
Thank you. We now have a small treat for us. We have Heather Lee, who's a wonderful singer, and Kim Cuneo is going to accompany her. I got that right. No one can speak to me in my... Our next part of the conversation until I get some guidance on that. We want to talk in all of the things that are happening right now. That moment of stillness was so beautiful. In the midst of the chaos of the week, the weekend, the news cycle, by the way, which is like a tornado on steroids right now. Or even just in our brains in this very second, it's beautiful to have that. And I'd like to talk to each of you about the idea of the anchor within. What is it in these times that sustains us, that nourishes us, that gives us strength and kind of keeps us to a mooring, lashes us to a mooring in a good way to our purpose and our sense of self, but also gives us a kind of strength. I guess it's about the power of the divine as well, in terms of whoever you perceive that one to be, and it could involve for many people prayer, meditation, or a spiritual practice. Now, before we begin to examine what it is that anchors us, I'd like to play a message from the remarkable Katrín Jakobsdóttir. She's a Prime Minister. She was the Prime Minister of Iceland from 2017 to 2024. She was incredibly popular Prime Minister. She very seriously tackled systemic gender inequality, the economic exclusion of women, including implementation of the world's first equal pay certification policy, taking significant steps to end sexual and gender-based violence. And she also chaired the Council of Women World Leaders from 2020 to 24. And I think in the climate of what we're hearing, especially with world leaders talking to each other and about each other, hers is a remarkably potent and refreshing voice.
Dear all, thank you so much for inviting me to be with you online. I want to talk to you about care and love. Those are words that we seldom see in international statements from leaders when they attend summits around the globe. But it is my conviction, after many years as leader here in Iceland, that if anything is absolutely clear, it is that we need more love and more care in the world. Caring is a word that is sometimes connected with women. The majority of the people who kept most of the world's health systems going during the pandemic were women. This is a traditional role of women, often separated from the business of politics, but possibly it's time to merge the two. Some might say, if we had more caring in the world, it would be a better world. Less conflicts, different approaches, a more holistic view on our challenges. And therefore, it stands to reason that we need more caring in leadership roles. We need more women in leadership roles. And this is something I kept in mind during my time as Prime Minister of Iceland. When I came into office in 2017, I was absolutely sure that I would try to be a caring Prime Minister. To care when the challenges are grave, when nature is ruthless, and when the main goal is to survive, is perhaps the deepest degree of caring. Caring should not be a surplus value. It should be the basis for everything. And every leader should be mindful that care and love are key elements in every good society. All around the globe, humanity is experiencing natural disasters, which are ruining homes, taking lives, destroying crops, and changing the natural habitat of humans and animals. When confronted with a climate crisis, which is radically changing our world, a different prioritization is needed. At the same time, we see more conflicts around the world than we have seen since the end of World War II. What humanity needs now is leadership, where caring for humans and nature is primary, and with the clear vision that caring is not only possible, but vital when circumstances are harsh. Thank you all, and I do hope that you have a fruitful discussion on the values that matter for the world.
Isn't that beautiful? And almost unfathomable at the same time. Like, imagine a presidential debate when they're like, no, I'm the most caring. I care really hard. Let me show you. Look at my record. I will continue to care. They're the values that are missing. And also what was missing before was the musical performance that I quickly announced, and I wasn't making it up. We are going to hear now Heather Lee, accompanied by Kim Cuneo. Absolutely sublime. Thank you so much. Heather Lee, accompanied by Kim Cuneo. All right, I want to anchor the conversation back in to the anchor. What are the things that sustain us? What are the things that keep us true to ourselves and our purpose? Linda, if I can start with you, what's your anchor?
It's not revolutionary. It's probably very similar to yours. One anchor, of course, is a very old. When I say old, it's been around me a long time, of friends and myself. And our notes talk about inner wisdom, resources and solutions that apply. But one of the things that I think that I am, as well as a person that thinks deeply about things, who thinks a long time about things. Because in my professional life, as a politician, I've had to make monumental decisions that affect the lives of thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And you don't arrive at those answers overnight. You think about it, you talk to people, you always try and put yourself, as we learned from To Kill a Mockingbird, stand in the shoes of others before you make your final decision. But the word that doesn't appear there that I would apply to myself in this context is pragmatic. Apart from those things of spirituality and wisdom and experience, there has to be, in my view, a big dollop of pragmatism. And that's what I've tried to apply. I think the final thing I'd say that is that I'm not sure about other countries' system, but I think in Australia we have been taught not to value our own stories. You know, big noting yourself. What's that other one, the crab thing out of the bucket?
Mississippi bucket of crabs.
Yeah, yep. You know what I mean.
What's the bucket of crabs? I don't know.
As soon as one tries to crawl out, the others
you
will
pull them
drag
back
it
down.
down.
Pull the crabs
Yeah, we've
back
got
down.
like a million names for having a big ego. You've got tickets on yourself, you've got a fat head,
But-
whatever. Yeah.
Can I just finish up by saying, particularly to all of you here, and it's something that has anchored me, is know your story and value your story. I remember being in a group of women in a yarning circle, and there's a woman, I think she was from Cronulla, and she said, "Oh, my life's been very boring. I've got 3 kids. I've never worked, you know, been a mum and a housewife all my life. I've got nothing to add to this." What transpired is that she was carried out of Hungary on her mother's back ahead of the Nazis. That's a story. So know your story, know where you come from, know who you are, and part of the anchor is you.
Yeah.
Linda, can I ask you about that pragmatism as well? Like, what does that look like? Can you give us an example of that?
Sure. I'll give you a very tedious, boring example. I live in Marrickville, good old Marra. When I bought into Marrickville, it was a suburb you didn't move to. Now it's a suburb everyone wants to move to. So that's been good. But it's things like, you might be feeling a bit down. So what is it that's going to make you feel better? What in a pragmatic, doing, physical way can you make yourself feel better? I did this the other day. I gardened for the morning. Another pragmatic decision, which is probably not very healthy, during a very difficult period in my life, I used work as the solution to keep going. And that was a conscious, pragmatic decision. And finally, in many of the decisions I've had to make politically, pragmatism is always part of it, always.
Sister Jayanti, can you tell us about the things that sustain you? You've spoken about meditation. Tell us what keeps you anchored.
When I've had doubts in myself, and there has been many periods when that's happened, in the early days in particular, I would think about not just faith in myself, because that was a bit rocky, but I would think about just simply the fact that the divine being is my parent, and I am the child of the divine. And in that awareness, I would be able to transcend the doubts I had in myself. And that was very, very powerful. And then, when I was having trouble in communicating with others, or there were different personalities that I was having to deal with and live with, then again, just trusting that there is something good within every human being. And can I look for the good in them so that then I can relate to them on that level? And so trusting God, trusting the family, the spiritual family, the human family, and also then finally learning to trust myself. And so it was a journey. And the period in which there were challenges with other people and their personalities and ideas, I had to learn to develop a lot of humility, because ego says they're wrong. And humility says, well, if they say something, there must be some sense to it. They must be coming from some particular standpoint. Can I have the patience to listen to them? Can I have the understanding and compassion to be able to see them as they are and where they come from and why it is they're coming in that direction? So the external things were never such a problem. Things would go up and down, but it was okay. But it was these two factors that were the biggest challenges.
And what about when the times you feel doubt, it's not in yourself, it is in the divine? Do you have those moments?
Yes, definitely. It's been the help that I've received from up above that's carried me through doubts and challenges. Also the challenges with other people. So it's been understanding that each one has a different role to play. You know, the example I was given that I always stay with is 5 fingers, and everyone is different, but each one has a different role to play. And so can I value every human being and see them with that respect? And maybe when I start respecting them, then I can understand them and love them also. But it doesn't start with that, but it starts absolutely with respecting and valuing every human being.
But what if they're like a psychopath or something?
Especially in that situation. Especially because...
Tell me why. I mean, I feel like this is an audience that's quite aware of psychopaths right now. Why especially then?
Because words don't reach them. They're in a different space. But your vibrations will reach them. Your good wishes for them and your genuine respect for them as a human being, that touches them. And they begin to soften and they begin to cooperate.
When? How quickly does that happen? Because that's the problem, isn't it? With some people, you have to really be very, very patient and hope that there's a change that you might not necessarily see.
Not just hope, but the conviction. The conviction that there is goodness in every human being. And so, yes, it does take patience. But that's okay. Life is a journey. And so going from here to there is going to take a little bit of time maybe, but they need all the more love and good vibrations.
John, tell us about I'm interested in hearing about your anchors and the idea of like whether you're good at nourishing yourself. I remember you told me once, didn't you, that you like a good focaccia once a week or something? That's one of your rituals? A good sandwich?
There is a theme emerging here. It's eating a lot of food. Yeah.
Well, that is one way of sustaining yourself sometimes, like rooting yourself in simple joys and nourishment.
There are some important anchors to hold within because as we make our way through the journey of life, it's really important that we hold an honest appreciation of ourselves so we can hold an honest appreciation of others. So that's not an overinflated view of yourself, but it's also not an underinflated. At Wayside we say, never take a snapshot of a person's life and call it the whole movie.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when we encounter people who are in trauma, distress or pain. This is but a moment in the movie of their life. And it's important that we do the work because we all make snap judgments and that's okay. It's just another thought that's moving around in our minds, and it's important for us to have the practices developed to be able to catch those thoughts and not allow them to be expressed. There's no perfect being who walks around seeing everyone non-judgmentally. And so finding the anchors within, I want to give you all hope, because don't let the brown Indian skin fool you. I'm just a bogan, right? And
that's a theme that's emerging.
There is hope out there. I tried so hard to find that practice, and see, I am a bogan. One of my notes is don't swear, right? And there is, and I was speaking at your book launch once, and I let out a thing. But the sentiment I was trying to express is, we aren't human beings trying to be spiritual, but we are spiritual beings trying to work out what it means to be human. And any practice we can find that can help break the flow, the constant monotony. Johann Hari says 98% of all human thought is repetitive and useless. And often we have that inner voice, which is just, we wouldn't say any of the things we say to ourselves, to our worst enemies, right? How do we break the pattern and that flow? And goodness me, I tried. I went to yoga, and then I thought, I'm Indian, we invented it, and I couldn't do it, all right? And particularly when the instructor was 19-year-old Kiki from Coolangatta, and she had a tattoo of the Bhagavad Gita scriptures as well as Daddy's little cutie on the other arm, and I just couldn't do it. But what I found works for me is I run, or I get on a treadmill, and I get my heart rate up to a point where the only thought in my mind is, don't die, right? And that breaks the flow, and it helps me get outside of myself. We find ourselves at our best when we find ourselves necessary, significant, but not central, right? That's an important thing to grapple with. How do we find that right evaluation of ourselves so we have the space within ourselves to be open to others? I love Carl Jung was once asked, what's your pilgrim's progress, when he was taking his students through that. And he said, this has been my pilgrim's progress, to climb down the 10,000 ladders of who I think I am, and to extend the hand of friendship with the clod of earth that I actually am. What a journey that is, to climb down the 10,000 ladders. And a hand of friendship, not of disdain, not of scorn. And when I get overwhelmed at the amount of work and the amount of pain and trauma that is in this world, I remember my brother, a friend of mine is Kyle Slab. He's a Bundjalung man, and they were raised on reserves, which are different to missions. So they've kept a lot more language, and he's an elder now in his 40s. And he was telling me, as an elder, he's learnt 5 or 6 new languages from the elders. And I was kind of overwhelmed. I said, that must freak you out. And he said, no, there's one point to everything that I've been invited to be a part of. And he said, all the learning I do, all the work that I do, it boils down to this one principle: how can I be useful to my mob? So let's not be afraid of doing the work, because the point of it all is how do we be useful to those that God and the universe places in our paths.
Linda, what can anchor a lot of people, and what we've been touching on, is that purpose and commitment to a series of values. How do you respond when you see a European leader say what we need is to care? Care is the adjective that should go before any kind of leader.
I'm not going to pretend that there are times that I don't get angry. I'm not going to pretend there are times where I am disgusted, and I won't pretend that there are times when where I see ignorance. And it's getting on to the next topic, but one of the things that I think we as a nation, this land we share, but you think about when you went to school, if you went to school in Australia, how much you learned about the history of this country. The history of this country, from a human perspective, goes back over 60,000 years. What do we learn about? We learn about the last 230 years. And on the timeline, it's about this much here. So in many ways, we've all been led to understand not the full story. But the thing that anchors me is this thought, is this is not just my story, because I'm Aboriginal. This is your story as well, because you live in this country. Some of you were born here, some of you have become citizens or on your way to that. Migration, and what an incredible story we've got to share. Anchored in the knowledge that you live in a country and share a place with the oldest continuous surviving culture on this planet. It's pretty groovy.
Linda, I remember going back through my history books to try to work out when did I learn about that, like where was it? And I'm flipping through it was year 8. Like where is the first mention of like our ancient culture, like of Aboriginal people, Torres Strait Islanders? And you know where I found it? It was under problems for squatters. Number 1, isolation. Number 2, climate. Number 3, like local Aboriginal people. And it was both unsurprising and deeply shocking at the same time.
How long ago was that?
It was the 80s. Yeah. And that's what we're dealing with.
That's right.
That's what we're dealing with. That sense of a problem, not an ancient wisdom and a culture to be proud of. We're just about to have another meditation led by Sister Jayanti. Can you tell us, is silence one of your anchors?
Yes, and I took a pause before saying that because in my meditation, I use thoughts in a specific direction, and then in between the thoughts there are pauses in which there's silence. And the silence can become longer and longer, the pauses become longer and longer, the space between the thoughts. So that's one type of silence. And the other type of silence is just experiencing the love of the divine and finding myself being lost in that love, absorbed in that love. And that's a very beautiful silence. And that happens in meditation also, when there's a very strong connection, a relationship that's built with the divine. And so it's different types of silence. But yes, silence comes in many different ways. And even, for example, every hour, on the hour, we use something that's called traffic control. Stopping the traffic of thoughts in the mind. You know, it's a very simple way to get into meditation, and just let yourself be silent for a few moments. Extend that for another few moments, and what you'll find is that there's something very beautiful that emerges within you, and whatever track you were on before changes and becomes one that's more positive, more comforting, more helpful.
Could you lead us in another meditation now?
Please sit comfortably with both feet on the ground. I connect with myself, the inner being, the being of light that I am. And in this awareness, I can tune into the vibrations of the One above, the Supreme, the Source of light, of love, of truth, of joy. And it's a connection which I realize I'd forgotten about. But now, in this awareness of the inner being, I can connect. And in this connection comes an ocean of love. A love that surrounds me, a love that reaches out and touches the entire human family. A love that brings comfort and warmth and a feeling of safety. A love that holds the human family together. A love that surrounds the entire planet and all within it. I hold this awareness within myself so that I can keep this warmth of love within me. Om Shanti.
We spoke earlier about awe and the ways in which we can see it in other people sometimes. And one of the greatest sources of awe and experiences of awe is actually in music and watching the talent and ability and just kind of soaring literacy of another person with notes and with sound. And to that end, a real treat for us today, Simon Tedeschi, one of Australia's greatest musicians, pianist, composer, is going to be playing for us now. Absolutely superb. We're getting all these tantalising morsels of music today from such talented people. And that was I Got Rhythm, by the way, composed by George Gershwin and rearranged by Simon Tedeschi. Now, when we think about everything that we're dealing with currently on the planet, as we keep referring to throughout this afternoon, one of the things I think a lot of us are struggling with is the sense of impotence. We see a problem, we don't know how to fix it. It seems massive and overwhelming, and what can one individual do? And it's a genuine issue that I just know so many people in my life and beyond that are really trying to work out what their place is and what is it that they can do. We can talk about the role of the government, of institutions, communities, families, workplaces, and so on, but does that mean that we're perennially disempowered? When I change, the world changes, is what we're talking about today, or as Mahatma Gandhi's grandson said, be the change that you want to see. I guess the idea is something that is what is it we do collectively? I am the shift, we are the shift. And to kind of kickstart this conversation, many of you will know Christiana Figueres, who just got an OBE, by the way. I have so much respect for her as an environmental leader and negotiator. She stepped into the role of Executive Secretary of the UNFCCC, of the United Framework on Climate Change, 6 months after the failed COP15 in Copenhagen. And she then, imagine the amount of work that goes into then navigating the trajectory that results in the Paris Agreement of 2015. And she continues this work, and she tries to encourage us to be optimistic. And she's, to that end, has co-founded Global Optimism. And she has this message for us.
Hello, friends. I'm sure that we can all very quickly agree that we find ourselves at a time of profound gravity. The fabric of the society we long for is being pulled apart. Our societal and ethical bones are being broken. So, friends, if we don't have the leadership we want, we have to call forth the leadership we need. This is the moment to step up and step in, to discover and nurture the leader that lies within ourselves, rooted in kindness and compassion for self and for others. As Wayfinders, we can build bridges across the very divides that we see, crossing the separating walls we have erected. We can intentionally build communities of humility, empathy, and love. Communities that are truly anchored in kindness and compassion. Kindness has sadly become a scarce resource. We can do something about that. We can ensure kindness remains a renewable and constantly renewed resource. Some people attribute to the renowned anthropologist Dr. Margaret Mead the story that she was once asked, what was the first sign of civilization? And after a thoughtful pause, she answered that the first sign of civilization was a healed femur bone. Now let's understand that in humanity's earliest days, a broken thigh bone would not allow you to feed or defend yourself. It was a slow but certain death, unless some other person acted beyond their own self-interest, out of compassion and kindness, to provide the necessary care over an extended period of time for that bone to heal. In our journey toward the healing of our fractured world, we would do well to recognize that fundamental truth about humanity. Civilization emerged not from dominance over others, but from vulnerability and care for others. The brokenness we see today is not our final state. We can transform it. Like a plant breaking through harsh soil to reach sunlight, we must break through the walls that keep us divided. We have within us the capacity to transform any reality we're given into the reality we want. One where broken bones, broken spirits, and broken systems all find their healing. And it's not just about fixing what is broken. It is about nurturing what actually makes us whole.
I love that idea of the healed femur as being a sign of civilization so much. I've just had a broken foot. John has a broken rib, cracked rib right now. We are the walking wounded on this stage. And I would not have got through without the support of my friends and people looking after me. That sense that care is core to civilization. Now, in this final part, Sister Jayanti, we're talking about how we make change individually and together, how we affect change. How did you, looking at you now, you're such a kind of respected and wise global leader, and it just seems like you must have just walked straight down that path, and here you are. But how did you work out where it was you could be most effective, where you could make change?
I'd like to share a story. It's a short story.
Yeah.
And I was 19, and I had decided that this was a life I wanted to have, a spiritual life. And I told the founder this, and he said he knew it already. He'd seen the signs much earlier than I had recognized. And then at some point, we were just together on our own, 93 years of age and 19 years of age. And he had a question. He said, "Is it possible for everyone to be happy?" I didn't have an answer. He replied, "Yes, it is." Then he said, "Is it possible for everyone to be healthy?" Again, I was quiet, and he said, "Yes, it's possible." Third question, "Is it possible for everyone to have enough for themselves?" Again, the response was, "Yes, it's possible." And all of this is possible only if we deal with the negative forces of the human being. The lust, the greed, the anger, the ego, the attachments. But you can't tell people to do this. What you have to do is start practicing this yourself so you are able to overcome all of these within yourself. And then others will see the happiness that you have, the inner wealth and health that you have, and will want to do the same. And so that was a major turning point in my life.
To start with yourself.
That's right.
Yeah. Do we ever finish? No.
Definitely, definitely. There's a point at which we can come to. I've seen human beings who, with the power of silence and meditation and spirituality, have been able to reach there.
Were any of them psychopaths? No, I'm kidding. No, I'm joking.
Maybe in some birth they were.
John, how do you deal, in the work that you've done, you've housed, refugees in your own home for many years. You've looked after, in a community where there's housing, but, poverty, addiction issues. And we know there's these root causes of all of these problems. And you're at the end kind of tending to people and bandaging them up and giving them love and showing them care. Does that ever create a tension for you in terms of what change, what impact we can have, what change we can be?
I think it's important to begin with ourselves, and there's a question that really we all need to grapple with, which is the life that I'm living the life that wants to live inside of me? How do we find our purpose? And how do we move boldly into a world where we can say a need doesn't constitute a call? That frees us up from, and this is where meditation is really important, is how often do you get to the end of the day and someone asks, "How was your day?" And you say, "I have no idea." You just know it was full. It's when we don't stop, we're a victim to the noise and the emotion, and it's like a page full of words with no spaces in it. It makes no sense. How do we press meaning into our lives and help that discern our path forward? So very early on, I was lucky to be invited by someone as Lisa and I were moving from Melbourne to Sydney, and we're heading into a high-density housing commission in Mount Druitt to live. One of my gurus said to me, he said, never be so arrogant to think that you are bringing hope into this community. He said, the best thing you can do for the next 2 years is to get yourself out of the way, is to sit down and be quiet and listen and pray that the Spirit will show you the song lines and the promises that have been sung over this land. And then pray that you will be able to join in helping inch those forward a little bit. You know, we won't make poverty history until we make poverty personal. How do we enflesh and embody ourselves in a way that helps us walk alongside those with whom we have felt the call or the inner voice lead us towards? And, you know, it's and to be humble enough to say, you know, to trust and have the faith that the Spirit requires our participation rather than our initiation. And that stops me from jumping in to grab control and to say, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to do that. My prayer now is help me participate. Yeah.
Linda?
I come from the most vulnerable group in our country, the sickest, the most incarcerated, and the least educated. I was in a community a few months ago where there were 30 people living in a three-bedroom home, literally. So those things sit heavily with me. I was also, as you probably all know, very involved in the recent referendum that delivered a no verdict on representation of Aboriginal people in our Constitution. The thing that I have learned, I'll be 70 in 2 years, the thing that I have learned is it is the humble acts that change things. It is not the big sweeping legislation. It's not what some world leader says that has very little relationship to any of us. It's what we do. It's about how we see ourselves. And if you are a good person, then there'll be good people around you. You will raise good people. And it is those humble acts, those little things that change the world. I have seen this, I know this, it has been my life.
I've noticed too lately, to that point, Linda, how like when you see someone being really kind to another person in real life, how like heartwarming that is now. You're like, oh my gosh, that person just cared for that other person, because we're almost being fed lies about who we are through social media.
Absolutely,
right?
And like I said earlier, Julia, it costs nothing to be kind. And I consciously do at least one act of kindness, deliberate kindness every day.
And the people that see that has an effect that goes on and on and on. We're going to have a final meditation now with Sister Jayanti, if you would lead us through. Thank you.
Reflecting on the things I've been hearing about, I go inside, connecting with the deepest part of me, the sacred space where there is stillness. And I can connect with the divine. And the love and compassion of the source reaches me, and it reaches out, encompassing the entire human family. The light of love, the light of peace, the light of truth surrounds the planet and holds all those on the planet. And these vibrations not only reach the human family, but they reach out and touch all forms of life. And the connection of safety and mutual support connects humans and all other forms of life. And these vibrations reach out and touch all the elements of nature. And the power of these vibrations is such that everything comes back into a state of harmony and order. The order of love and truth prevails. This is our future. This is the world we co-create together with the divine. I hold this vision of a world of light. And as I come back to the awareness of the physical dimension, I keep this vision in my awareness and remind myself of this each day so that I move each moment in that direction. Om Shanti.
We're now going to have a performance from Carmen Warrington and David Jones on the singing bowls and the drums. Carmen Warrington and David Jones. So beautiful, thank you so much. How gorgeous are our angels, by the way. Coming out bearing flowers, giving up their Sundays. I really want to thank our panel today for everything that they've taught us, for the kind of humble, pragmatic, kind of ferocious, in a way, leadership that they've shown, which in many ways is profoundly countercultural. They've spoken over acts of kindness every day, of finding strength in silence, of rooting yourself in community and in other people. And the whole purpose of today really is to think about wayfinders like this who have found ways forward in community and with each other. And I'm so grateful for the wisdom that each of you have shared with us today. I also want to encourage you with a story I heard only relatively recently, which kind of, I think, was first cited in the 1960s. It's had a few iterations since, but I think it's kind of perfect for these times. And it was a woman, a young girl, let's say young woman, standing on the beach. And the high tide had brought up all these starfish. They were stranded. They were lost, they were gasping, they were going to be dying. And she's taking them and she's throwing them back into the water. And there's a man who's going for his walk, his morning walk, and he stops and says to her, you're never going to get them all back in. You're never going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to help. And she picks up one, tossed it into the sea and said, well, I helped that one. And that, I think, is a good way of thinking about doing what is possible and what is before us. But it's genuinely been such an honour to have you all here, and thank you so much. I know we're all grateful for it. Thank you. And more of our beautiful angels, so gorgeous. What was that?
There. Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Bigger than me.
I know, right? Yeah.
Now, our final musical treat is Tony Backhouse with the Café of the Gate of Salvation. This has been an explosion of joy every time I've seen them all sing. So we're going to vacate the stage and make way for them now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. Do you want me to carry that? Are you okay? You notice the change in those lyrics? Power is in the heart of all change. Power is in the heart of man. Change to power is in the heart of all. Thanks so much to Tony Backhouse and the Café, the Gate of Salvation. Aren't they wonderful? I have loved them for a very long time. I really want to thank all of you for coming up and participating today, whether you're here physically or whether you've joined us online. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. I think it's been really special. I've gained a lot from it. I hope you have as well. And I want to thank the Brahma Kumaris for organising all of this. And I should say as well, there's a QR code. Wait. Anyway, the QR code will appear. I can see one here. I'm sure you will too. Once I just... Oh, there we go. Magic. If you want to attend a retreat or study meditation or participate in a self-development course, you can find like-minded people if you scan that QR code here. And like all Brahma Kumari things, it is free of charge, which is excellent in a cost of living crisis, personally. Look, I also been asked to mention that every Thursday in the heart of the city that we're in, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at 180 George Street, you can find I Meditate, which is a place to just relax, recharge some batteries, and again, always free of charge. So do feel free to pop in there. Now, as you leave today, the concert hall, ushers are going to give you a wishing card that's got a personal affirmation message for you, and on the back of the wishing card, you're going to find the QR code again today. So hopefully that's a way that we can begin a conversation, continue this conversation, and people can stay connected to each other, and we can all be the star throwers that we so desperately need in this world right now. So thank you so much for coming today. Thank you. I've got my own angel. Hello, gorgeous.